It was a bright, sunny day at the local suburban park, a haven of peace where families came to relax and kids ran freely across the grassy fields. Vanessa Lewis, a single black mother in her early 30s, sat under the shade of a tall oak tree, her son Jordan beside her, giggling as he flipped through the pages of his favorite comic book. Dressed in casual yet neat clothing, Vanessa exuded an air of quiet strength. She was a martial arts instructor by profession, though most people in the park wouldn't have guessed it from her calm demeanor. Today was supposed to be a peaceful break from her busy life, a day to bond with her son and enjoy the simple pleasures of the community. But the tranquility shattered when the roar of motorcycle engines echoed through the park. Heads turned as a group of 5 leather-clad bikers rolled in, their loud engines and intimidating presence quickly stealing everyone's attention. The leader, Brock, a burly man with tattoos snaking up his arms, revved his bike louder than the rest, smirking as if the park now belonged to him. The gang dismounted, their boots hitting the ground with heavy thuds. They laughed and shouted, purposefully disturbing the calm atmosphere. Brock's eyes scanned the park like a predator seeking prey, and when his gaze landed on Vanessa and Jordan, his smirk widened. Jordan shifted closer to his mother, instinctively sensing the tension. Vanessa placed a protective hand on his shoulder, her calm exterior masking the storm brewing inside her. She watched the bikers carefully, her mind calculating the possibilities. She knew trouble when she saw it, and trouble had just arrived. Vanessa kept her hand on Jordan's shoulder, her eyes steady as Brock and his gang started walking across the park. Their loud laughter and mocking comments disrupted the peaceful atmosphere, causing families to pack up their picnics and move away cautiously. The gang's presence was like a dark cloud hanging over the sunny day. Brock's gaze locked onto Vanessa, and his smirk widened as he nudged one of his men. "Looks like someone doesn't know when to leave," he said, loud enough for her to hear. The gang chuckled as they approached. Jordan clutched Vanessa's arm, his small fingers trembling. "Mom, can we go?" he whispered, his voice barely audible. Vanessa gave him a reassuring smile and whispered back, "Stay calm. It's going to be okay." Brock stopped a few feet from them, crossing his tattooed arms over his chest. "Nice day for a picnic, isn't it?" he sneered, his tone dripping with mockery. "But I'm guessing you didn't get the memo. This isn't exactly your kind of place." Vanessa met his gaze, her expression calm but firm. "We're just here to enjoy the park like everyone else. There's no need for trouble." Her voice was steady, but her posture showed she was prepared for anything. "Trouble?" Brock said, feigning innocence. "Who said anything about trouble?" He leaned closer, his shadow looming over her. "I'm just saying, maybe you'd be more comfortable somewhere less nice." One of the bikers, a wiry man named Lenny, laughed loudly. "Yeah, don't you have a place that fits your kind better?" His comment sparked laughter from the others, but Vanessa didn't flinch. Families nearby glanced nervously at the scene, some pulling out their phones to record, while others quietly ushered their kids away. The tension was palpable. Vanessa stood up slowly, positioning herself between Jordan and the bikers. "We're not bothering anyone," she said evenly. "Why don't you move along and let everyone enjoy the park?" Brock's smirk faded for a moment, replaced by a flicker of annoyance. He wasn't used to people standing up to him. He glanced at his crew, then back at Vanessa. "You've got a smart mouth," he said, his voice hardening. "Might want to watch it before you get yourself in trouble." Vanessa's heart pounded, but she refused to show fear. "I'm not looking for trouble," she said, her voice calm but firm. "But I won't run from it either." Brock raised an eyebrow, intrigued by her confidence. "Is that so?" he asked, stepping closer. "Maybe I'll teach you a little lesson about respect." Before he could move further, Vanessa shifted her stance subtly, preparing herself for whatever came next. Jordan clutched her hand tightly, his wide eyes fixed on the gang. The park grew quieter as more onlookers began to gather. Sensing that things were about to escalate, Brock stepped closer to Vanessa, his smirk laced with arrogance as he reached out to grab her arm. "I'm going to teach you a lesson you won't forget," he snarled. Vanessa's calm demeanor shifted instantly. In one fluid motion, she twisted her arm free and locked his wrist, forcing him to stagger forward. With a quick sweep of her leg, she knocked him off balance, sending him stumbling to the ground. "What the?" Brock grunted, looking up in stunned disbelief. The rest of the gang froze, their jeers replaced with shocked silence. This wasn't the easy intimidation they had expected. Brock scrambled to his feet, his face red with embarrassment. "Don't just stand there," he barked at his crew. "Get her." Two bikers lunged toward Vanessa. She moved like water, sidestepping the first man's swing and delivering a sharp kick to the back of his knee. He crumpled with a groan. The second man grabbed at her, but Vanessa spun out of his reach and countered with an elbow to his ribs, knocking the air out of him. Jordan watched from behind the bench, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and awe. "Mom," he whispered, clutching the edge of the bench tightly. "How are you doing this?" Vanessa didn't respond, her focus laser-sharp. Another gang member, a wiry man with a crooked grin, tried to grab her from behind. She twisted his arm behind his back and pushed him forward into the man already on his knees. Both fell in a heap, groaning. The crowd around the park had grown larger, people murmuring in amazement as they recorded the scene on their phones. Gasps and scattered applause broke out as Vanessa incapacitated yet another attacker with a precise spinning kick to his shoulder. "Did you see that?" someone whispered. "She's like a ninja or something." Brock, still fuming, motioned for the remaining bikers to surround her. "You think you're tough?" he spat. "Let's see how you handle all of us." Vanessa adjusted her stance, her muscles tense but her expression calm. "I don't want to hurt you," she said, her voice steady, "but I will if you don't back off." Her confidence rattled the group. Two of the bikers hesitated, glancing nervously at each other. "Man, maybe we should," one started, but Brock cut him off with a glare. "Cowards," Brock snapped. "Get her." They charged as one, but Vanessa was ready. She dodged and weaved through their attacks, her movements precise and efficient. With every punch, kick, and block, she neutralized their aggression without causing unnecessary harm. Within moments, 3 more bikers were sprawled on the ground, groaning in pain. Brock stood alone now, his fists clenched and his confidence shaken. He stared at Vanessa, his jaw tightening as he realized she wasn't just defending herself, she was in complete control. Vanessa locked eyes with him. "You've lost," she said, her tone firm but calm. "Take your crew and leave." But Brock wasn't done yet. He clenched his fists and lunged at her, throwing a wild punch. Vanessa sidestepped easily, grabbing his arm and twisting it into a lock. With a swift motion, she swept his legs out from under him, sending him crashing to the ground. The crowd erupted into cheers, clapping and shouting encouragement. Vanessa stood tall, her breathing steady as she looked down at Brock. "Stay down," she said firmly. "This is over." For a moment, Brock looked like he might comply, but the humiliation burned too brightly in his eyes. "This ain't over," he growled, struggling to his feet. "You'll pay for this." Vanessa didn't flinch, but her jaw tightened as he staggered away, motioning for his crew to follow. One by one, the bikers picked themselves up and retreated, casting wary glances back at her. As the crowd slowly dispersed, Jordan ran to his mother, wrapping his arms around her. "Are you okay, Mom?" he asked, his voice trembling. Vanessa hugged him tightly, her calm exterior hiding the adrenaline still coursing through her. "I'm okay," she said softly, brushing his hair back. But this isn't over. Brock stormed down the park's path, his gang trailing behind him, limping and grumbling. The humiliation of being defeated in front of a crowd, and by a single woman, burned like fire in his chest. His jaw clenched as he turned to his crew, his eyes blazing with fury. "Get yourselves together," he snapped, shoving one of the bikers who was lagging behind. "We're not letting her get away with this." "Boss, maybe we should just leave it," muttered Lenny, nursing his bruised arm. "She's different. She knew what she was doing." Brock rounded on him, grabbing his collar and shoving him against a tree. "You scared of some karate, Mom," he snarled. "She's nothing. Nobody embarrasses me and gets away with it." The other gang members exchanged uneasy glances, but Brock's fury was infectious. He pulled a chain from his belt, its metallic clinks echoing ominously. "We're going back, and this time, we're finishing what we started." Meanwhile, Vanessa and Jordan were gathering their things near the tree where they had been sitting. Jordan looked up at his mother, his voice small. "Mom, do you think they'll come back?" Vanessa knelt down to his level, placing a hand on his shoulder. "I don't know," she admitted, her voice steady. "But if they do, we'll be ready." She gave him a reassuring smile, but her mind was racing. She knew men like Brock. They thrived on dominance, and a public defeat like this wasn't something they would let go. As she stood, her eyes scanned the park, watching the retreating backs of Brock and his crew. The crowd had mostly dispersed, but a few bystanders lingered, whispering about what they'd just witnessed. Some offered Vanessa supportive nods, while others pulled out their phones, still recording. "Mom," Jordan said hesitantly, tugging at her sleeve. Vanessa turned and froze. Brock and his crew were heading back, their strides purposeful and menacing. Brock's chain glinted in the sunlight, and another biker brandished a baseball bat. "Go hide," Vanessa said firmly, pointing to the bench. "But, Mom," now, her tone left no room for argument. Jordan ran toward the bench, crouching low and clutching his knees to his chest. Vanessa stepped forward, her posture calm but ready. Brock's smirk returned as he stopped a few feet away. "Changed your mind yet, lady? You've got guts. I'll give you that. But this time, you're not walking away." "Neither are you," Vanessa replied, her voice cutting through the tension. Brock swung the chain in a wide arc, but Vanessa dodged effortlessly. Before he could recover, she closed the gap between them and struck his wrist, forcing him to drop the chain. She kicked it aside, her eyes never leaving him. "You don't have to do this," she said. Brock's snarl deepened. "You think I'm scared of you?" Two of the gang members lunged at her. Vanessa ducked under one swing, twisting the bat out of the attacker's hands and tossing it aside. The other grabbed her arm, but she countered with a sharp elbow to his chest, sending him stumbling backward. The crowd began to gather again, murmurs of amazement and fear rippling through them. "She's doing it again," someone whispered. Brock motioned for the remaining bikers to surround her. "Don't hold back this time," he growled. Vanessa's movements were precise and calculated. She weaved through their attacks, using their aggression against them. Within moments, two more bikers were on the ground, groaning in pain. Brock hesitated, his confidence faltering as he realized he was alone again. The crowd cheered, their phones capturing every second. Vanessa took a step toward him. "Walk away," she said firmly. "This is over." For a moment, Brock looked like he might listen, but then he glared at her, his fist clenched. "This isn't the end," he growled, retreating with his crew. "You're gonna regret this." Vanessa stood tall, her breathing steady as she watched them leave. The tension began to dissolve, and the crowd erupted into applause. Jordan ran to her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "Mom, are you okay?" "I'm fine," Vanessa said, holding him close. But deep down, she knew Brock wasn't bluffing. This wasn't over. The echoes of the confrontation still lingered in the park as a distant wail of sirens broke through the tense silence. The crowd that had gathered began murmuring, some pointing toward the road, where flashing red and blue lights were rapidly approaching. Vanessa stood tall, her arm protectively around Jordan. She scanned the park, noting the bikers' hasty retreat. Brock and his crew, bruised and humiliated, were already rushing toward their motorcycles, their retreat marked by curses and threats. "They're running," someone in the crowd called out. Vanessa turned her gaze to the source of the sirens. Two police cars skidded to a stop near the park entrance, and officers stepped out, their hands hovering near their holstered weapons. Their sharp, scanning eyes took in the scene, the fallen chain and bat, the murmuring crowd, and the sight of Vanessa standing calmly amidst the chaos. An officer approached her, his expression serious but non-threatening. "Ma'am, we got reports of an altercation here. Are you all right?" Vanessa nodded, her voice steady. "I'm fine. They were causing trouble." She gestured toward the bikers, who were now trying to speed off on their motorcycles. Another officer shouted into his radio, "We've got fleeing suspects on motorcycles, heading north from the park, requesting backup." "Mom," Jordan whispered, tugging at her sleeve. Vanessa crouched down, her hand on his shoulder. "It's okay, Jordan, just stay with me." A third officer stepped forward, addressing the growing crowd. "Did anyone see what happened here?" Several hands shot up, and one bystander waved their phone. "I got the whole thing on video," the bystander said eagerly. Stepping forward, she defended herself. Those guys were harassing her and her kid. The officer nodded, taking the phone to review the footage. As he watched, his expression shifted, a mixture of admiration and disbelief flickering across his face. He handed the phone back, turning to Vanessa. "From what I'm seeing, you handled yourself well, but we'll need a formal statement." Brock's voice suddenly cut through the commotion. "She attacked us," he shouted from across the park, where another officer had intercepted him. "She's crazy. We didn't do anything." The officer near Vanessa raised an eyebrow. "Is that true?" Vanessa shook her head, her calm tone unwavering. "They came at us. They made threats, and they tried to attack me and my son. I defended us." The officer holding the phone interjected. "The video backs her up. They were clearly the aggressors." One by one, Brock and his crew were rounded up, their protests growing weaker as they realized the weight of evidence against them. The crowd watched as the bikers were cuffed and led toward the police cars. Several park-goers approached Vanessa, offering words of support. "You're a hero," one woman said, placing a hand on her arm. Vanessa gave a faint smile, her focus still on Jordan, who clung to her side. "I'm just a mom," she said quietly. As the police finished taking statements, an officer handed Vanessa a card. "We'll need you to come down to the station later to finalize your report," he said. "And thank you for keeping things from getting worse." Vanessa nodded, watching as the police cars pulled away, the bikers inside. She looked down at Jordan, brushing a hand over his hair. "It's over, right?" Jordan asked softly. Vanessa hesitated, glancing toward the horizon where the last of the flashing lights disappeared. "For now," she said, her voice calm but resolute. By the next morning, Vanessa's life had changed. A short video of the confrontation, recorded by a bystander, had gone viral overnight. The clip captured everything: the bikers' threats, Vanessa's calm resolve, and her masterful defense. The video was shared millions of times, accompanied by hashtags like #MomDefender and #StandUpToHate. Vanessa woke to her phone buzzing incessantly. Notifications poured in, messages from friends, strangers thanking her for her bravery, and reporters requesting interviews. Jordan peeked over her shoulder as she scrolled through the flood of attention. "Mom, look," he exclaimed, pointing at a video on the screen. It showed Vanessa disarming Brock with the chain, her movements swift and precise. "You're famous," Vanessa sighed, setting the phone down. "This isn't about being famous, Jordan," she said gently. "It's about standing up for what's right." That afternoon, a reporter from a local news station knocked on her door. Hesitant at first, Vanessa agreed to speak, realizing the importance of addressing the public interest. Sitting on her modest living room couch, she shared her story. "I didn't go to the park looking for trouble," Vanessa said, her voice calm but firm. "I went to spend time with my son, but when those men started threatening us, I knew I couldn't stay silent. I had to protect my child and show him that standing up to hate is always the right thing to do." The reporter nodded. "Many people are calling you a hero. How do you feel about that?" Vanessa smiled faintly. "I'm just a mom who loves her son. I did what any parent would do. If that makes me a hero, Then I hope it inspires others to protect what matters. The news segment aired that evening, amplifying Vanessa's story even further. Clips from the confrontation were played alongside her interview, and soon national outlets picked up the story. The narrative sparked widespread discussions about racism, self-defense, and the strength of single mothers. Public reactions were overwhelmingly supportive. Social media buzzed with comments praising Vanessa's courage. "This is the kind of role model we need," one person wrote. "She's not just protecting her son, she's standing up for all of us." However, the attention wasn't entirely positive. Critics emerged, questioning Vanessa's actions. Did she really need to fight back so aggressively? One commentator asked on a news panel. Couldn't she have just walked away? Vanessa ignored the criticism, focusing instead on the outpouring of gratitude from her community. Neighbors stopped by to thank her, and parents at Jordan's school approached her to share their admiration. By the end of the week, Vanessa was invited to appear on a prominent talk show. Sitting under the studio lights, she addressed a live audience. "We all face moments where we have to make a choice," she said. "Mine was to show my son that courage isn't about being unafraid, it's about doing what's right, even when it's hard." Her words resonated, and applause filled the room. As Vanessa left the studio, she held Jordan's hand tightly. "Mom, I'm proud of you," he said, looking up at her with wide eyes. Vanessa smiled down at him. "I'm proud of us," she replied. Knowing their story had just begun to spark change, the courtroom was packed. Journalists scribbled notes, cameras clicked outside the doors, and members of the community filled the benches, eager to witness the trial of Brock and his gang. The viral video had made the case a national story, and public attention was focused on whether justice would be served. Brock sat at the defendant's table, his once arrogant demeanor replaced by a simmering resentment. His gang members, Lenny and the others, looked nervous and defeated, avoiding eye contact with the crowd. The prosecution wasted no time, presenting its case. The video footage was played for the jury, showing Brock and his crew harassing Vanessa and threatening her and her son. Gasps echoed through the courtroom as the video showed Vanessa's calm defense and the gang's eventual retreat. This wasn't just a random act of aggression. The prosecutors stated firmly, this was a deliberate attempt to intimidate and humiliate. The evidence speaks for itself. Witnesses were called to testify. A bystander recounted the gang's threats, describing how they disrupted the peaceful park and targeted Vanessa. They didn't care who saw them, the witness said. They thought they could get away with it because they always had before. When Vanessa took the stand, the courtroom fell silent. She recounted the events of that day with the same calm clarity she had shown during the attack. "I wasn't looking for a fight," she said, "but when they came after my son and me, I couldn't just stand by. I had to protect him and show him that standing up to bullies is the right thing to do." Her testimony struck a chord. The jury hung on her every word, and even the judge seemed moved by her composure and courage. When it was Brock's turn to speak, he tried to shift the blame. "She provoked us," he growled. "She acted like she was better than us, and we were just defending ourselves." But his words rang hollow. The video evidence, combined with witness accounts, left little room for doubt. The judge, a stern woman with a commanding presence, addressed Brock and his crew during sentencing. "Your actions were not only criminal but cowardly," she said. "You targeted an innocent woman and her child, believing your strength in numbers made you untouchable. You were wrong." Brock was sentenced to 10 years in prison for assault, harassment, and hate crimes, with no chance of parole for at least 7 years. His gang members received slightly lighter sentences, ranging from 5 to 7 years. But all were ordered to attend sensitivity and diversity training as part of their rehabilitation. The courtroom buzzed as the sentences were read. Vanessa sat in the gallery, Jordan beside her, holding her hand tightly. There was no joy in seeing Brock punished, only a quiet sense of relief that justice had been served. A week later, Brock began his court-mandated sensitivity training. At first, he resisted, treating the sessions with disdain. But one day, something shifted. During a group exercise, He was paired with a black man who shared a story of being harassed and humiliated by people like Brock. I didn't know what I was walking into that day, the man said, but it stayed with me for years. The fear, the anger, it doesn't just go away. For the first time, Brock listened. He didn't have a snarky retort or a deflective comment. Instead, he sat in silence, grappling with the consequences of his actions. Meanwhile, Vanessa was invited to speak at the sentencing hearing, standing in front of Brock and his gang. She addressed them directly. "I hope you take this time to reflect on what you've done," she said, "not just to me, but to every person you've intimidated or hurt. You have a chance to change. Don't waste it." Brock met her gaze for a moment, his bravado gone. He looked down, muttering, "I'll try." The gang's reckoning wasn't just about punishment. It was about planting seeds of change. Some of the bikers showed signs of reflection during their sentences, while others remained defiant. But Vanessa's words stayed with them, a quiet echo of accountability. Back in the community, Vanessa became a symbol of strength and resilience. Parents told their children her story, and local organizations began hosting workshops on self-defense and racial tolerance. The park, once a place of tension, started to feel safe again. Vanessa knew the fight wasn't just about one confrontation. It was part of a larger struggle for justice and equality. And while Brock and his gang served their sentences, the community continued to grow stronger, united by the determination to stand against hate. The aftermath of the confrontation rippled through the community like a wake-up call. Conversations about safety, inclusivity, and accountability dominated local meetings and social gatherings. What had started as a horrifying incident became the spark for significant positive changes. Vanessa stood at the center of it all, her quiet strength and resilience inspiring those around her. She received countless messages of gratitude and encouragement, but she knew this was only the beginning. "This isn't about me," she often told reporters and neighbors. "It's about us, as a community, coming together to make things better for everyone." One of the first changes came from the local authorities. The city council held an emergency meeting to discuss the safety of public spaces, prompted by the viral video and community pressure. By the end of the month, new measures were in place. The park where the incident occurred was fitted with security cameras and better lighting. A part-time security patrol was assigned to monitor the area during peak hours. Signs promoting inclusivity and safety were posted, with messages like, "This park welcomes everyone," displayed prominently. Families who had stopped visiting the park began returning, reassured by the changes. The once tense atmosphere transformed into one of warmth and camaraderie. Children played freely again, and parents sat on benches, chatting with a newfound sense of peace. The community rallied behind Vanessa in remarkable ways. Her story had become a symbol of standing up to injustice, and her neighbors wanted to show their appreciation. A group of local parents organized a fundraiser to help support Vanessa and Jordan. The funds were used to repair damages at their home caused by Brock's gang and earlier threats, and to help cover Jordan's school expenses. Vanessa was deeply moved by the gesture, thanking everyone who contributed. "I didn't expect any of this," she said at the fundraiser's closing ceremony, "but it shows how strong we are when we come together. I'll never forget this." Recognizing the power of self-defense, Vanessa decided to offer free martial arts classes at the local community center. The response was overwhelming. Women, teenagers, and even older adults signed up, eager to learn skills that could empower them in challenging situations. In her first class, Vanessa stood in front of a diverse group of students, her voice steady as she addressed them. "This isn't just about fighting," she explained. "It's about confidence. It's about knowing you have the strength to protect yourself and the people you love." The classes became a regular fixture, and the bonds formed within them were transformative. Students often stayed after class to share their stories and experiences, creating a supportive space where people could heal and grow together. The community began to change in other ways as well. Schools started incorporating lessons on diversity and anti-racism into their curricula. Local businesses displayed signs of solidarity, with many offering discounts to customers who attended Vanessa's classes or donated to park safety initiatives. The neighborhood's collective attitude shifted, with more people willing to step up and speak out against discrimination and bullying. Vanessa's bravery had set an example that others were eager to follow. One day, as Vanessa and Jordan walked through the park, they saw children laughing and playing on the same field where the confrontation had taken place. Parents waved at Vanessa, some stopping to thank her again for her role in making the park safe. Jordan tugged on her hand, smiling up at her. "Mom, look, the park's even better now." Vanessa nodded, her heart swelling with pride. "It is," she said, "and it'll stay that way because we made it happen together," though the memory of that fateful day still lingered. Vanessa knew the community had emerged stronger. The changes they had fought for were real, and they were proof that even in the face of hate, unity and resilience could create lasting impact. The confrontation at the park had left a lasting impression on Jordan. At just 9 years old, he had seen his mother stand up against an overwhelming threat with unwavering courage. Days after the incident, he couldn't stop replaying the events in his mind. For the first time, he fully understood just how strong and remarkable his mom truly was. One evening, as Vanessa tucked Jordan into bed, he looked up at her with wide, thoughtful eyes. "Mom," he said quietly, "were you scared?" Vanessa sat on the edge of his bed and smoothed his hair. "Yes, Jordan," she admitted, "I was scared, but being brave doesn't mean you're never afraid. It means you do what's right even when you're scared." Her words stayed with Jordan, and over the weeks, he began to see the world and his place in it differently. One day at school, Jordan faced his own moment of truth. During lunch, he saw a group of older kids picking on a smaller boy in the corner of the cafeteria. The boy's tray had been knocked to the ground, and the bullies laughed as he scrambled to pick up his food. Jordan hesitated, his heart pounding. He remembered how his mom had stood up to Brock and his gang, even though the odds weren't in her favor. Summoning his courage, Jordan stood up and walked over to the group. "Hey," he said, his voice louder than he expected. The bullies turned to him, surprised. "Leave him alone." For a moment, the older kids looked ready to laugh him off, but something in Jordan's determined stance gave them pause. One of them muttered something under his breath before walking away, and the rest followed. Jordan helped the boy to his feet, handing him his tray. "Are you okay?" he asked. The boy nodded, his face breaking into a relieved smile. "Thanks," he said softly. When Jordan told Vanessa about the incident later that day, her face lit up with pride. "That was very brave of you," she said, hugging him tightly. "You stood up for someone who needed help. That's what being strong really means." Jordan's bravery didn't stop there. Inspired by his mom's martial arts classes, he joined one of her beginner sessions. At first, he struggled to keep up with the moves, but Vanessa encouraged him every step of the way. "You don't have to get it perfect," she told him during a practice session. "What matters is that you keep trying." With each class, Jordan grew more confident. He learned not just how to defend himself, but also the importance of discipline and control. Vanessa often reminded him, strength isn't about hurting others. It's about protecting and helping people. The experience deepened Jordan's admiration for his mother and strengthened their bond. He began to see her not just as mom, but as a role model, a person who embodied courage, kindness, and resilience. One day, as they walked home from class, Jordan looked up at her and said, "Mom, I want to be just like you when I grow up." Vanessa smiled, her heart swelling with emotion. "You already are, Jordan," she said, wrapping an arm around his shoulder. In that moment, she realized that her actions had done more than protect her son. They had inspired him to grow into a compassionate and courageous young man. The story of Vanessa's bravery and resilience didn't fade with time. It grew into a movement. Her actions that day in the park had inspired not just her community, but people far beyond its borders. What began as a confrontation with Brock's gang had become a symbol of standing up against hate. And Vanessa embraced the opportunity to create lasting change. Vanessa was approached by local leaders and activists who wanted to amplify her message. Together, they launched an initiative called Stand Strong, aimed at promoting inclusivity and providing self-defense resources to communities across the city. Through Stand Strong, Vanessa worked with organizations to hold workshops in schools, parks, and community centers. These sessions taught not only physical self-defense, but also strategies for de-escalating confrontations and building resilience in the face of adversity. What we're teaching is more than just how to protect yourself, Vanessa explained during a televised interview. It's about showing people that they have the strength to stand up for what's right, no matter the circumstances. The initiative quickly gained traction. Donations poured in, allowing Stand Strong to expand its reach. Local businesses and even national brands expressed interest in supporting Vanessa's work, turning her small idea into a growing movement. Vanessa's efforts didn't go unnoticed. She was honored by the City Council with a Community Hero Award, recognizing her courage and leadership. At the ceremony, she stood on stage with Jordan by her side, addressing the crowd. "This isn't just about one day in the park," she said. "It's about making sure no one has to feel unsafe in their own community. It's about standing together and lifting each other up." Her words resonated deeply, drawing a standing ovation from the audience. Months later, Vanessa and Jordan returned to the park where it had all begun. It looked different now. New security cameras, vibrant murals promoting unity, and a small plaque near the entrance honoring Vanessa's contributions to the community. The park was alive with activity. Children played on the swings, families picnicked under the shade of trees, and laughter filled the air. Vanessa smiled as she saw the transformation, knowing it was a reflection of what her community had achieved together. Jordan tugged at her hand, pointing to a group of kids practicing martial arts moves near the playground. "Look, Mom, they're doing what you taught them." Vanessa watched with pride, seeing how her influence had inspired others. "That's what it's all about." "Jordan," she said softly. As the sun dipped low on the horizon, Vanessa and Jordan sat on a bench overlooking the park. The memory of that day lingered, but it was no longer a source of fear. It was a reminder of their strength and the progress they had made. "I'm glad we came back," Jordan said, leaning against her. "Me too," Vanessa replied, wrapping an arm around him. "This park belongs to all of us now. No one will take that away again." The story of Vanessa and Jordan's courage had left an indelible mark, proving that even in the face of hate, love and determination could triumph. Their legacy wasn't just in the changes they had made, but in the hope they had inspired, ensuring that future generations would continue to stand strong.